Okay, we're gonna get started on the next chapter. We're in inference now. This is what makes up 40% of the content on the test. So what we've really reached is the idea now where we're going to pull together everything that we've talked about into like one process. So what we're going to start with today in this unit is confidence intervals. So confidence intervals, that's that thing where you've read things online where it says, 72% of Americans support such and such an idea with a margin of error of 4%. So what that means is they went out and they ran a survey. They talked to a random group of Americans. They found out that of that group, I'll say 100, 72 of them believe some idea, so 72 out of 100. But there's some variability to it. That's what margin of error is. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to kind of walk our way through an example that we did in class, and hopefully this will kind of help put some of the first initial concepts in your head. So we have this idea. What we want to do is we want to say, like, there's this new reward system. If they do something great, you pick a bead from a jar. If it's red, you get a piece of candy. If you don't win a prize. So what we want to do is we want to figure out like how many beads are in this jar. So what we're going to do is the following. You're all going to do this in class. So what's going to happen is we got this thing of beads and try and get it as high as I possibly can. So what will happen is we got this paddle. And this paddle actually has space for 50 beads. So what's going to happen is we're going to take the beads, them up, make sure that they're shuffled. Then what we're going to do is we're going to stick this paddle in, shake it, full. And what we're going to say is, okay, I got a paddle here, and if I count there, I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 5 beads. So 5 beads out of 50. So 5 beads out of 50. So what I believe is, when I'm looking at this, when I'm making my best guess is that based on this sample, 5 out of 50 or 0.1 are red. So this is going to be called my point estimate, and it's represented by the notation we've seen before, p hat. So it's a sample. So what we're going to do is we're trying to figure out this p hat in order to estimate the p, which is the true proportion of red beads. So in this case, what we want to look at is we want to look at what we're talking about. So we're going to talk about the population, the parameter, the sample, and the statistic. So the population in this case is all the beads in the jar, or all the beads in the container. The sample is the 50 beads on the paddle. And that sample is represented by the statistic, p hat. And in our case, p hat equals 5 out of 50, p hat equals 0.1. We're trying to figure out p, which is the true proportion. But we don't know that. So the true proportion equals something that we don't know, the true proportion of, red beads. And we don't know that. So now the next question, so our point estimate is like our best guess is center. The next question says, now you're going to change your point estimate into an interval by adding, subtracting some value from your point estimate. The number you add or subtract is called your margin of error. So you want to give yourself a little bit of flexibility. Okay, so if you think about it, we had 5 out of 50. Okay, so we 5 out of 50, so 10%. Do we think it's more? Do we think it's less? How much more? How much less? So we got to add and subtract the same number. So if we looked at it this way, what's going to happen is we could make lots and lots of guesses. I mean, seriously, we can make lots and lots of guesses. So for example, let's say I wanted to guess plus or minus like 5%, plus or minus 0.05. What that would indicate 5%. If I were to add and subtract 5%, what you're talking there is 5% of 50, 5% of 50 is going to be 2.5 beads. So do you think it's possible that there could be 2.5 more or 2.5 less? It's always a possibility. If you want to make it a whole number because you think, well, you can't half a bead, we could call it 0.6. We could say 6%. 6%, 6%, and that would say now we're talking plus or minus 3 red beads. Do you think that's a reasonable one? Well, to me, it's reasonable that the true number, or that it's reasonable that we could add 3 more red beads, because when you look at the container, it seems like a reasonable guess. How confident are we that we're in here? So what we're saying is, how confident are we that we're in that range? Using your point estimate, write an interval that we think. So right here, this is what we think it is. So what we're going to say is we think it's 10%, but we think it's plus or minus 6%. So realistically, if we subtract 4% to 16%. How confident did you feel that your interval captures it? Well, I mean, in this case, you tell me what you think. I mean, like, how confident? Are you 50% confident? Are you 80% confident? Are you 100% confident? What number? So, I mean, in this case, what we could look at is you could say, you know, something, in this case, let's say you're 80% confident. So what you could say is we are 80% confident the true number of red beads is between 0.4 and 0.16. So the next one, one of the groups got 27 to 33 as their interval. What was their point estimate? Okay, the way you can figure out point estimate, again, we talk about this in classes, we're going to add the 2 numbers. So this is like our extremes, A and B. We're going to do A plus B. We're going to divide it by 2. So in this case, we're going to do 0.27 plus 0.33. We're going to divide it by 2. And our point estimate here is going to be 30%. For margin of error, we're going to do the difference between the two. So we're going to do 33 minus 0.27 divided by 2. So in this case, that's going to give us 3%. So what that says is that this group had the following: 30 plus or minus 3%. Subtract 3, 27, add 3, get 33. So now what we want to look at is we're going to start looking at, do we believe things when we ask questions? So one group claims that the true proportion of red beads is 25%. Does your interval support or deny that claim? Well, your interval, or the interval that I got, was 0.04 to 0.16. So my question is that in the interval or is that not? In this case, since 0.25 is not in your interval, I deny this claim, because your interval of 80% confidence doesn't capture this. We're going to be able to figure out exactly confidence levels. Most of the time it's going to be given to us, but this is kind of how we're going to begin the process. So that's kind of a quick summary of what we did in class. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to do another one where we'll talk about the questions on the back, and I'm going to ask you to practice.